apart right now, guys. She's a little torn apart right now because there's been some work going on with the Haltech 1500 Elite Series wearing harness, and boy, oh boy, have I got a lot done. What is going on, guys? This is Jason with JWClassicVW, and welcome back to the vlog. Welcome back to the show in my EFI turbo build in my little garage. And of course, Goose, my 1956 old window ragtop, my baby, the dream car, getting all kinds of power, tools on the bench, guys. All kinds of wiring going on. I've gotten so much done, so much completed. Boy, oh boy. That is right, that is right. Sometimes you got to do a lot of work off camera, guys, because it just, concentration. With the wiring harness, there was a certain level of concentration that I kind of had to maintain. So that's why I did it. But I've got a lot of stuff to show you guys. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to go over some of the basics on how I did my wiring harness. Now, there's controversy here and there with some things that I did, but there are all kinds of great videos out there too from Haltech that I'm going to go link in the description below. I'm not affiliated with Haltech. I just like what they got going on. And HB Academy has a lot of really good videos on wiring harnesses as well, like race level type stuff, which we're not quite there yet with Goose, but I did make my wiring harness removable so I could take it out and do all kinds of different stuff to it if I end up doing that or if I want to. So let me turn you guys around real quick to the car, show you kind of like what I've done, catch you up to speed on where we're at, and then I'm going to show you some of the tools and some of the things I did to get the wiring harness looking the way I did. Let's go ahead and start this little bit of catch-up or, follow-up with you guys inside the car and talk about the Haltech Elite 1500 ECU and kind of like what I had to do to get things set up for this harness to be removable. Okay, guys, if you watched one of my previous videos, I'm not sure if I explained it or not, but there are a number of sensors that had to go up to the front in powers for the fuel pump is up there, the tach is up there, the fuel pressure is up there. Plus, I ran a couple DPO lines, which are insulated sensor lines, AVI lines for the Haltech for if I'm going to end up doing like a two-step, you know what I mean? Turbo, two-step, that kind of stuff. So what I ended up doing is one of these Deutsch connectors. The Deutsch connectors are cool because they have pins. They're pretty fancy. This setup, this one right here is actually a JR Ready Deutsch connector. I went ahead and just took the line that I ran up there, and I had to install this Deutsch connector to allow me to make the harness removable. And I like that because I like to be able to take it out and work on it wherever I want to. So yeah, the Deutsch connector has the pins right here. And these are all dependable, pretty simple. You just pull this little block out right there, and there's a couple, you hit this little tabs inside there, and you can pull these pins out and work on it. Or, if you want to repin something else, then you could do that as well, which I'm going to end up having to do for the tech, because the signal that comes from the ECU, the Haltech ECU, has to be interpreted a different type of waveform so that my tach can pick it up, because the tach was based off of a coil pickup. So that's the first thing I had to do. Is I installed this Deutsch connector, and I will show you guys how those pins are kind of pinned out, or how you do the pin out, or how you do the terminations for that up at the bench here in a little bit with the right tool. All right, guys, we are up underneath the trunk area. This is my vent, if you didn't know already. Got some of the fuel stuff down the side of there. Pardon the echo. Man, there's an echo in here for sure. So this is where the wire comes through for the Haltech. It comes through the heat rise tube that's right there. You see I kind of brought it through and then branched it out because there's only one wire right there that had to go up for the ignition on, and it goes over to the ignition on. And then there was one wire for the tach that's in here that I had to kind of come in and splice on. This right there, zoom you guys out a little bit. So this is the old coil power, which we don't need anymore. And I'm just going to make that into regular power back there. I plan on adding some lighting into Goose's motif. Some mood lighting here and there. And this wire right there, you can see a little bit of heat shrink on it next to the purple wire. That is for the tach, and it goes back to the tach. This is tach signal. Right here, wires, the lines break off. The ones coiled up over here, these wires coiled up over there, those are the ones for, like, if I end up adding in a two-step type setup. Yeah, two-step type setup. Keep running down through. Here is where the fuel pressure sensor is. Well, the first fuel pressure sensor right here. It's past the fuel pump. It's right after the fuel pump line that's feeding the main hard line to go up through to the back. All right, yeah, and these are the two feeds. The feed line down, the main line down, and then the return line that comes back here. And they go into the bottom of the fuel tank. Up front here, you see the fuel pump. This is the Bosch 044 fuel pump, and yeah, man, she's definitely not quiet. She might quiet down a little bit once there's fuel inside of there, but let me move to the other side to kind of show you the terminations. But first off, it comes down over here. I kind of fed it in the backside with a wiring harness. You don't see it there, but right here you see it branch out. And then it grounds to the chassis ground, or the lights ground. Runs up through, and then up to the feed ports of the actual fuel pump. And I might end up gutting this flow. There's a little like flow thing inside of there. And actually, it might be hollow. I'm not sure. I had to check. But I've heard that can cause some issues with fuel pressure. Let me take it to the other side of the fuel pump, show you the terminations. Okay, all right. Here we go. I don't know if you guys can see that very well with the light, the way that it is. So you can see the positive and the negative terminal there and how it's kind of branched out. It turned out really nice. I like the way that it's set up, and it works good. Works good. Now, my whole idea of the fuel pump being here is if I had to replace it or if I had to do any kind of work on it, is at a readily available location. Because if you guys have ever seen the rake on Goose, she sits a little low, a little hard to get to some stuff. All right, that kind of wraps up the trunk area and all the work that was done here. All I kind of have left to do, guys, at this point is purge the fuel tank. I want to take the fuel tank and rinse it out like 5,000 or 6,000 times and then install the fuel tank. And we'll be good to go on tying this all up. I'm going to come down here with my 6AN wrench, you know, special one made for these things. Make sure that everything is nice and tight. All my connections are nice and tight. Put the fuel tank in. And we'll be good to rock and roll to put some gas in there once we're good. But the whole trunk area, all the wiring for now, will be done. I'll have to reinstall my fuel gauge, and that's about it. Yeah, I'll be done with the front side here. Now let's move to the back of the car, guys. Move to the back of Goose and show you the business side. Well, actually, we'll show you the back side underneath where the wiring harness came through. All right, guys, time to transition underneath Goose to show you guys what's going on underneath here with the wiring harness. Okay, so starting from right here, this is where the Haltech is on the other side, the ECU. This is the transition point, or where the grommet comes through, the 2-inch hole that I had to put in there for the transition point, and you can see that it comes up over here. You can kind of see the heat shrink right there. And this is where the harness starts to branch out up at this point. This is, that is the O2 sensor hookup. I'm going to go ahead and build out my bracket and mount it right in this area to be able to accept 2 of these WB2s. Because remember, we're going to have 4 O2 sensors, guys. So this is the first branch out right here. And this line right here, this long one that comes up through, is for the head temp. So I'm going to have to branch this out for the head temp sensor, which is right there. And it's going to be coming up here, where I'm also going to have a few different sensors in this area, guys. You can see the boost control solenoid. So there's going to be the boost control solenoid hookup will be there. We're also going to have the oil temp and oil pressure off of the oil filter mount, where it comes back. And the oil cooler will be right here off the torsion tube. Up here, also part of the branch off, as you guys see, this is the power for the oil cooler fan. And this is the ground for the oil cooler fan, which I'm probably going to go ahead and take and just wrap right back to this point on the chassis and put a little lug on there and put the ground at that point. From here, the wiring harness travels to the other side of the transmission. And you can see that I used one of my rib nut mount points for a hold, or one of the strain reliefs for the wiring harness. And right here you can see it's held in position really good. You don't need a whole lot once it's put together like this to hold it. You just want it to be bandaged in a way that it's good to go. And for the O2 lines, I'm probably just going to take them and zip them back to this location on the wiring harness. I didn't want to stuff them inside of here, but that's all going to be figured out once I figure the mount location for the WB2. Yeah, there's one of them. Part of the CAN system for the Haltech Elite. All right, let's go to the other side and show you guys that side of things. So this is where the harness branches out at its first point on this side of the engine. This is to make it over to the flex fuel sensor. That's the first branch off of there, is the flex fuel sensor, which is right here. The other branch off of here is for the NOx sensor, and it comes down here. And I'll kind of have it affixed right to this point, and it sweeps in on the O2 sensor, or the, not O2, but the NOx sensor. My other two O2 lines will run through here as well and go over. They kind of follow the body line down along here and transition up to the header system. Through this grommet hole there, I did have to open this up a little bit. This hole right here, the transition hole, the backside, I did have to open that up a little bit to be able to get both the starter and the start solenoid line through, along with the wire and harness going through. All right, guys. Very good. Very cool. Let's bring you up to the engine and show you all the craziness going on up there. All right, guys, before we get started on showing you the engine compartment area and all the wiring greatness that happened there, I spent hours and hours on that. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys, if you're enjoying this content, which I know that the majority of you are. Share with a friend, share with somebody else that is into the Haltech ECUs or doing an EFI build, because a lot of this information is going to be good for them no matter what. Gives them ideas of what to do, maybe help them out with some of the configuration that's going on, or if they have questions about the Haltech Elite 1500 or Elite Series and how it all hooks up, join the Facebook group, Instagram as well, because a lot of this happened in the background there. Cool. Now, back to the video, guys. All right, moving up to the engine, guys. Moving up to the engine. Let's start over here where it transitions through the grommet location, or the main hole for the wire and harness. You guys can see there's all kinds of action going on over here. Let's start up with the coils. You can see that the transition to the coils, these are LS2 truck coils, and I'm probably going to upgrade these at some point, but these are definitely going to get the job done for now. You know, it's just one of those things, you know, you pick up what you can, and then I'll invest a little bit more money into the coil upgrade. Once we got everything running great, we can go ahead and do that. You can see that one of my little plugs for my LS coils broke. Oh man, that really got my goat last night. There's a line that goes up to the IAC. I took one of the lines off there, one of the fittings off there, so I can put the second screw in, hold in there. And we'll run the rest of the IAC lines, which I just got one more line to run underneath the car up to the airbox here. Yep. Okay, so we got the fuel lines installed too. On the back here, the only concern, sorry guys, the only concern I have right now is for this air temp sensor. There is a little bit more strain on there than I want, so I'll probably pull this out, add a little bit, a couple inches, not very much, so add a little more back to this so that I can get the strain off of that. My fuel, you can see that the fuel pressure, this is the second fuel pressure sensor that's hooked up. It's good to go. My injectors are good to go. Looking really good on the routing. I do have to put in some holds on the back side here, at least one or two. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make that happen. I might just end up there because there's a hole here. This is an extra power for fans if I end up putting the fans back here for the intercooler. Right here, there's a hole in the block where I can maybe put like a little bracket, make a little mounting bracket for the wiring harness. That'd be kind of cool to help with any kind of strain that may be put on there. Transition over to here. We have our other set of LS coils. The grounding that goes to the chassis, I went ahead and, this is stuff you guys don't see that I did off camera. I drilled out the riv nut that I put in here, cleaned off the paint around where the riv nut goes through, the stainless steel riv nut. No waxed at all, really good, and then redid the rivets so that I had a nice ground point for the ignition coils. Because the coils have to have not only a chassis ground, but a signal ground. So we've got that ran on both of these. So you have power, signal ground, and then chassis ground. Sometimes, from what I read, they run the signal ground and the chassis ground together, both of the ground points. If you have issues with ignitions or issues with the coils, that could be a problem. And then you see our injectors, our second set of injector lines over here. Cool. If anybody knows of a really good like OE source for these plugs, hit me up in the comments below, because I have searched all over the place and there's lots of variety out there, but nothing that really says it's OE quality. And that's really what I'm looking for, something that's OE quality. Because that's what I need. I need something that is going to be as good. Because I picked up some of the Amazon ones, but they are definitely not as good as the stock ones. I went ahead and extended my power and my generator on light so that they'll fit to the back side here, on the back side where the alternator is, because the alternator is built into the fan unit on the Bergman. Yep. And it's a special one. You can't just go and pick one of these suckers up because it's clearance to fit inside this bad boy. Of course it is. Of course it is. The next part that I have to do is run our cam sensor and our crank sensor through, and I'm going to run them through here. I don't know if you guys can see in there or not, but there is a mount location. I'm going to put a mount on here. I'm just going to put one of these holds, not a mount, but one of these holds like that. I have smaller ones. I'm going to put one of those right there so that I can run these lines through the inside of the shroud, along with this one that's ran through there. Now, there's no damage or nothing's going to happen to there, and these ones before just ran, and there isn't a real hold that held them in place, but just in case, because the amount of velocity and speed being pushed down through this thing, I just want to make sure that they're held in place really well. I showed you guys this in the last video. Something else I did in the background that you guys didn't see was mount the other side with the spring return on here so that it's all good to go. Something else I have to play with still. All custom greatness, guys. And that is about that. Okay, now it's time to talk about some tools, and I'm going to go ahead and terminate the cam and crank sensor with you guys and show you what's going on with that. I have to go ahead and remove the shroud to be able to do that. So I got to remove the shroud to hook everything up, and we'll get right to that in a second. But what I want to show you first, let's move over to the bench, guys. I want to show you the tools and kind of talk to you a little bit about what's going on with kind of some of the things you're going to need, or some of the things I used anyway, with doing this wire harness install and termination. Let me get you guys up in the tripod and we'll talk about all of these. Okay, guys, like I was saying, like some of this stuff is not necessity. Some of it definitely helps out when it comes to the installation process. And what I mean by that with the speed. And some of these you definitely need if you're going to be using like the Deutsch pins. The Deutsch pins and or some of the kits that are available with the Deutsch connectors. GM connectors and 4 connectors. There's a bunch of Delphi connectors that you need to have at least something similar to this, crimping tools, to make those crimps happen. Now I'm going to zoom you in real quick, guys. Let's zoom you in. I'm going to bring you over to the bench and zoom you in on what I'm talking about with these crimps right here. Now these are the iSwiss brand, and you can find these on Amazon. There's like a part number right there. Does this one have a part number on it somewhere? No, it doesn't. I'll go ahead and put these down in the description of the video if you are looking for some of these, but there's particular crimps, and you look at the head of this bad boy. Zoom in, baby. Zoom in. Look at the head of this bad boy, and it shows you exactly how it crimps. Now, if you've been looking for this crimp, and you're going to need these for these particular connections, these types of crimps, these are the ones you want. Now, I've tried the other tools out there, and I'll show you those here in a second. The other ones that are available, like the universal ones where you kind of swap out the heads on it. They work for some stuff, but I really found that these particular ones work. Now you can get ratchet ones too, but these ones were the ones that weren't super expensive. Now this one does the seals. See the little rounds right there? There's little seals that when you do a push to seat or a pull to seat, there's a seal that goes on there, and these little round ones are for those seals. These are super small right here. Like if you need to crimp some super small stuff. Now let me bring you over to the Deutsch pin one and kind of explain how that all works, because it's good to know just in case you end up buying one of these Deutsch ones. This thing is about 160 bucks. It was not cheap. About 160 bucks for that bad boy. So these are the pins that you get, like for instance in that G Ready kit. This is the G Ready kit that comes with, or GR Ready kit. It comes with an assortment of these. Now, if you were to buy these, like the actual, like super expensive Deutsch ones, like this one right here alone, it's like 20, 30 bucks for that particular one. And each one of these are like 10, 15 bucks, depending on the pin count, how much you get. So you buy these little pins right here. They come in the kit with that. And let me show you how these work. It's got a band on it, like a little green or blue band. I think it's blue or green, whatever. Well, that kind of is supposed to correlate to the actual little set thing right here. Let's take this off real quick. And this Deutsch pin crimper, I'll link this down in the description as well too, guys. And don't forget, I told you this is not cheap. It's not the most expensive, because let me tell you what, there are some kits out there, even on the old Amazon, that are way expensive, super way expensive. But if you look on the back here, it's mil spec rated, which I guess is like the high quality jazz that you can buy out there, mil spec rated for doing these pins. This is non-soldered connections. If you look inside there, you can see, like, when you crimp this bad boy down, it's got multiple teeth that crimp in on the lug. And I'll crimp one of these here just to kind of show you how it goes and what you have to do. So the whole point, when you go to crimp this down, is you need to have the crimp spot, or the actual pin, level or flush with the orifice, this little orifice right there. So let's run this bad boy back in here. Okay, so what I did is I just ran it all the way down to where it bottoms out. And that'll give you an idea of where you are. So you want the end with the print on there, the little color code, facing up. You can see right now, I don't know if you can tell or not by the camera, that it's not sitting exactly flush. So you back out your little screw that you put in there, your little screw adapter, until it's flush. And the easiest way I found was just kind of feel with my finger. Oh, that's flush right there. And then you're not going to stop. You put the stop in there. Now go ahead and watch. I'm just going to do this with one of these pins. I'm not going to do it with both of the pins. But watch it grip down in there. And if you had a piece of copper in there, or your connection, you would be crimping down on that sucker. Zoom in a little farther. Okay, guys, I'll zoom way in. Is that like crazy for 4K? Wow. And you can see that's a pretty insane crimp. It's very particular. That's why these things cost so much. See how crimped all the way around it? Super cool. Super cool. The only other adjustment on this is when you're adjusting the gauge of the wire that you're running in there. Like on this particular set, you just pull this sucker out and then you'll adjust it. It's pretty easy. And what that does, it adjusts how far in the teeth go. Of course, right? Cool. Okay, so those are the main things you need, the main tools. Like, you don't need this for stripping. I will say that this makes things like a million times nicer, but they're not cheap. And once again, like, if you're doing this thing, you're gonna spend a good 50, 60 bucks on a good set of these suckers. You can just use the standard standbys, you know, just get yourself a pair of the regular little strippers, but I'm telling you right now, you're gonna spend a heck of a lot more time doing this than using one of these. And this is nice. I just like the way it is. And I've always had these scissors. These are Telco scissors, or electric scissors. I'm in the telco industry, guys. I used to be a cell site installer, doing the AT&T level grade installation. So that's kind of like where I get my wiring background from. So a set of these are super nice to have because, you know, I'm just cutting pretty much anything. Cutting heat shrink, cutting the other installation that I was using for the wiring harness, cutting the tape. Good stuff. You don't need it really for the tested tape. This tested tape. The wire harness, this stuff just rips. No problemo. Let me move over to the other side here, guys, and we'll talk about what's going on this side. Okay, looking at all these goodies, these are some of the standards, the standbys. Your heat gun. You usually pick up a good deal on one of these in the department that has like wallpaper or tile. You'll spend about 20 bucks less, and it's basically the same heat gun. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit or note, or a little bit of hack for you guys. Solder, check out the description below, guys. I picked up this off Amazon, and as always, guys, if it's an Amazon link, I'm an Amazon affiliate, and what you do is you're helping out the channel when you go ahead and buy one of those things. Now it's little, so like if this is like 10 bucks, I'm probably getting like a nickel or less when it comes to the percentage on that. And the percentage of what I get usually is based off of whatever it is you buy. So if you bought one of these expensive tools, like if you bought one of these through the affiliate link, I might make about $2 or $3 off of that, which that would be kind of cool. In the back here, you'll see this is the jacketing that I used predominantly. These two were the predominant ones I used. I didn't really use the supersized one. I used these two when it came to building out my wire and harness. Check out the link below for these. These are rated to like 150 degrees Celsius, which is pretty dang hot. And none of my stuff runs too close to the exhaust, so this should be good to go. Now, on the other hand, this stuff that I use at the breakout points is not super heat rated and will melt. So something to note. They don't really go smaller than the half-inch size right there. And this half-inch size is not super small. So it'd be kind of nice if they had one that's smaller, but I could not find smaller than half-inch. But that's all good. So in the controversy I was talking about, controversy between soldering, stuff that goes in the engine compartment, which I've been doing like forever, and using these lugs. I use these in a few places on the wire and harness where I do breakout points. Like there's a larger power running through for the injectors, and there's a larger power running through for the coils. And what you do is you take a smaller gauge wire and you branch off of that to turn the 1 into 4. So I use these at those locations, and they worked out pretty good. And what you have inside of here is an assortment of different crimp sizes. These are the ones where you just strip into a section of the power or whatever it is you're branching out. I did signal ground too. I branched out the signal ground. And these ones right here kind of like crimp down onto the insulation along with the copper. I just used these ones predominantly, these ones right here. Cool. I'll put those down in the description as well, guys, if you're interested in picking up some of that stuff. Solder. This is solder, and then you have flux. This stuff is super important, guys, when applying flux. Now, I've had it for so long, I can't even get the cap off anymore, but I just dive stuff down into the top. So what the flux does is helps the copper accept the solder. And you have two different types of solder. You have solder that has flux, like a flux core built into it. And then you have solder that's just regular old solder. There's, no flux in it. Either one of those work. The lighter I used for was whenever I was cutting any of this stuff, cutting, let's say this jacketing right here. If I cut this jacketing right here, you can see it's kind of frayed at the end. So what I would do is I would take my lighter, zoom in, baby. Take my lighter, and then I'd run it for a little bit over top of that to get rid of the fraying. And that's it. And then it would clean up the fraying and keep it from fraying out. See? A technical note, something to note, whenever you're running your heat gun close to that stuff, if you get too close, it's going to melt it. It's going to jack it up. There's different levels of heat shrink too. Like I've got these different heat shrinks inside of here, different sizes. This is a mil-spec heat shrink used for doing like high-end wiring harnesses. I only picked up one of these and used that a little bit. And it's good stuff, but it takes a lot more heat, a lot more steady heat, constant heat to get that to shrink down. All of these ones right here have glue inside of the heat shrink, so that's super cool when it comes to building the harness out because it helps seal up the connection points or the breakout points. All right, guys, all right. That is the skinny on all the stuff I used to build out this harness. Now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to turn back to Goose and work on those couple connections and show you what it's all about, guys. All right? See you. Good. So making sure that I didn't penetrate into these jackets at all, which we're good to go. It's got a signal ground inside of here too. That's just going to get cut off. We have power, and then a couple positive negatives for the actual signal that's coming through. I'm going to look up and see what these need to be for the dub sync and where they'll pin out to exactly. Because we only have one signal on the dub sync, and I think it's going to be a negative signal. After reviewing the details on the cam sensor widths, the dub shop is a Hall effect sensor. We're not using the green. our signal is going to be the yellow. So we need to go ahead and isolate, which pretty much means trim this sucker back so it's not going to cause any issues. And then we have positive, signal ground, and then our actual trigger, which is the yellow on the Haltech harness. Cool. Ooh, that was a lot. It'll be fine, it'll be fine. Oh my goodness, that's super tight. They're all in there though. You got them all seated in there. Jeez Louise. Didn't hurt anything? Looks alright. And you gotta take your, this sets the pins out and locks them into position. Put this on there. Good to go. So let's run her in there and take a look and see how that one looks. Okay. That actually looks pretty good. Once we get this other one on there, which we could probably put that on right now, and then we have to, they'll be able to figure out the termination points for the rest of the story. For the other one, the other pin, but that looks pretty good. It's in it held in place just right where I wanted it to be. All right, guys, we are good to go. Check it out. Got my hold installed inside there. It's got everything held with just enough play inside of here to be able to move things back and forth if I need to. Now I just got to run the next connection for the crank sensor over here that I have to extend out to get it to fit in there right. But you can see it's got some play where I can move things back and kind of line stuff up where I want to. Went and notched out my shroud a little bit, put a couple little notches here for the lines coming through. We are good to go, guys. And that is just a little bit of the struggle. Yeah.
24 hours later.
So 24 hours later, after lots of thought and consideration, I changed my mind, guys. All that work, and I decided to go ahead and just extend these two so that I didn't have those terminals inside of this area, which I just kind of thought I'd feel better about it being back here. I just put them back here. And what I can end up doing is just kind of tucking them in. I'm going to take some of that high temp jacket and run it over top of the two of these. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Let me go ahead and pause it for 1 second. I'll bring it right back. Okay, now take another look. You can see I just went ahead and just took some of that sleeve and just put it over top of those terminals, those Deutsch connectors back here. And I think it'll help out with like any kind of vibration or anything and kind of keep them from getting jacked up or, you know, just a little isolation. And then we still have just the TPS left to terminate once we get that all installed. But yep. We are about done with the wiring, at least the top side wiring. And this is the stuff I was talking about, guys. I just cut a length of this off to help protect it. Cool. Yeah. All right, guys, that is going to do it for tonight. Actually, you know, I got to show you just a little bit of what's going on with the wiring harness, kind of like everything that went into getting things set up on the EFI build. It's quite a bit when it comes to running all the electrical, and it took me a long time. You know, don't think it was like just a week. It was a lot of planning, a lot of patience that went into making sure everything was set up the way it needed to be so that it'll work the way that I wanted it to work for my application. And your application is probably going to be a little bit different, of course, because you're building your own custom build, right? Maybe. The dream, EFI Turbo. Well, my dream anyway. You guys, I'm sure, have your own dream. Comment below. What's your dream? What is your dream build? What kind of engine do you want to put together? Mine's, of course, the EFI Turbo. With the Haltech. Well, the Haltech kind of came into the dream as I kind of figured out what I wanted to build. But yeah, lots of cool stuff, guys. Lots of cool stuff coming because now that we kind of have things mocked up, I can go ahead and pull everything back out again, get the transmission set up, get it back, get the rear end back together again, and man, we are getting closer and closer to a fire up. I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate all your support. I appreciate all my new subscribers, all the people on Instagram. All you guys are great. I'm sorry if I don't respond back to you right away because, man, I am super swamped with all kinds of other things going on. And, of course, working on Goose, my kids, I play pool, I got a job. outside of this. All kinds of stuff, guys, but I appreciate you. Can't wait for the next video. See you guys then. This is Jason with JWClassicVW, and I'm out.